Hello, my name's Howard Broad and I'm a member of Midlothian Friends Meeting, a Quaker meeting located in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia. I'm here today to share with you my personal experience on the journey to having more regard for all the wonderful life that's here on our planet Earth. I'm sitting today actually at the meeting house itself. It's located in a preserved neighborhood, and also the meeting house grounds are certified wildlife habitat. So when I worship here each Sunday, I have lots of time to reflect, a lot of visuals of all of creation, and over the years I have thought more and more about my eating animals. And that's what I'm here to share with you today, my personal journey in this regard. So I hope you find something interesting in it. If there's anything you can glean from it for your own personal journey, that's encouraging. Or perhaps you may listen to me and you may decide that this doesn't speak to you. When I first became interested in Quakerism many years ago, I was very fascinated by the story of George Fox and William Penn. George Fox was the originator or initiator of the Quaker movement in England in the mid-1600s. A contemporary of his was William Penn, an aristocrat who became convinced of the Quaker message of there being that of God in everyone. William Penn, being an aristocrat, carried a sword with him everywhere he went. And he knew that Quakers were a peaceful people and routinely did not carry weapons. So one day he asked George Fox, "How long should I carry my sword now that I'm a Quaker?" And George Fox answered him, "Carry it as long as you can." And that story is one of the things that so impressed me with Quakers. I had been raised in a more fundamentalist religious tradition that had a lot of rules, a lot of do's, a lot of don'ts. And here was a religious tradition that appealed to your conscience, the inner light within you, to guide you on your particular life's journey. So for me, the whole issue of eating animals became one of me giving up my sword. It's been a very slow process for me, because I really did not choose to stress myself out over it. I chose to let the desire to do so grow in my heart, and I'm still not yet finished with that journey. For example, although I no longer eat mammals, I do partake of seafood because I have health reasons, I have other concerns. But I think the point is, in keeping with the whole philosophy of Quakerism, is that I am responding to what I am led to do to help others and help myself. In this case, the others are animals that I used to choose to eat. It all began for me with those chicken trucks. The ones you see on the road that have the chickens all boxed in crates and crammed together, traveling fast down the road with the wind gushing in on them, sometimes the rain or snow. They try to cover them when that occurs, but it still gets in on them. And it's really obvious how much these poor animals are suffering. If you've ever seen a chicken in a farmyard, I happen to live very rural, so I see that often. They're actually very happy creatures. They have an ability actually for affection, and they have a personality. So for me to continuously see these trucks and these chickens suffering like this, because I live in a rural country area, it was weighing on me over many, many years. So eventually I just got to the point where I could not eat chicken anymore. And frankly, it brought thoughts to me in my mind of the concentration camps that Hitler imposed on the Jewish people. And having a father that is Jewish, and he had relatives in those concentration camps, I'm particularly sensitive to that suffering, although I don't think you need to have any Jewish ancestry to be sensitive to that. So my first action on my road or my journey to not eating meat was to give up eating chicken. And that's not the first thing most people give up eating. Usually it's pork or beef, but for me it was chicken. And soon to follow that was actually pork, because I started realizing how intelligent pigs are, again because of my exposure to them in the country. And I also became aware of the suffering that occurs to them when they're slaughtered. So that was my first two steps, if you will, into my journey of not eating meat. Because the Midlothian Friends Meeting House is literally in the middle of 4 acres of woods that comprise the meeting house grounds, and then there's another 100 acres of a preserve surrounding it. Then there is a neighboring llama farm that we're allowed to visit and utilize. You become completely consumed and surrounded by nature and the beauty of it and the serenity of it whenever you worship there. I had an occasion probably 2 years ago where we were worshiping in our meditation garden that is behind the meeting house. And I was sitting there and I could see some deer off into the distance through the woods, and I saw some geese fly over, and I was just feeling so connected to nature. Out of that calm and silence and listening to that of God in myself, to my inner light, all of a sudden a thought or a paradox, whatever you want to call it, popped into my brain. I had for some time not eaten chicken or pork, as I described to you already, for the reasons I described to you. But I had continued to eat beef, and I think it's because I absolutely loved the taste of steak ever since I was a little kid. So I reasoned in my mind, cows are dumb. They don't really enjoy life. They're just a kind of a hunk of meat just waiting to be eaten. And now I think that's so arrogant and stupid of me, but I think I was trying to make excuses for not doing what I was eventually going to be led to do. So in that silence, though, a small voice said to me, "Is that really true? Is that really true?" So the worship ended, and I drove home. And on the way home, I went by a farm with a big pasture, and it had in it some cows, and they were sitting under a tree. They were some of them were facing each other, some were actually lying down, and when they were facing each other, their tails were wagging, and they looked at each other, and I looked at them. It was pretty close, and I could tell by their eyes that they were absolutely enjoying life, as much as what I might do sitting on a nice day in the shade on a porch. And it hit me that I had been wrong. And I actually went home and I told my wife I no longer could eat beef, and she has never really liked beef. So I told her, you know, we've already bought it, let's just give it away to somebody who we know is fairly poor and needs some help and could use the food. So we went through our freezer and packed up all the meat in a box and literally gave it away. And from that day on, I've not eaten any beef. Here we are at the end of my own personal spiritual journey. I want to encourage you to just take what I've said and do as you're led. You may not be led to do what I've done. You may choose to go further. You may choose not to go further. But what I hope that I've imparted to you is that the wonderful thing about Quakerism is that our form of worship and our community helps us to always reflect on our lives, to make sure that we are living it to the best of our ability in light and love. And for each of us, that can manifest in different ways, different actions, and that's okay. But this was my particular action in regard to the earth. There's many other things I don't do because I'm just not led in my heart to follow it to the degree other people do. But this is one that has taken years for me to grow in my heart and result in outward action. So I leave you now, and I wish you lots of light and lots of love.